taking names and kicking butts. This is Headkicks and Haymakers.
Good morning, fight fans. Welcome to Head Kicks and Haymakers. I am that dude, Bodkins. What an incredible night of fights last night. We're gonna break them down, talk a little UFC, talk a little MMA news. This is our always UFC weekly Sunday morning show, and as always, I'm joined by my main man, Kay with a Craig. And Mr. Smoking Amigo, Kenneth Miller. Morning, boys. What an incredible night of, incredible afternoon of fights. Main and co-main, I said last night, but I guess that was 2 in the afternoon. I love those middle of the day cards. Gives me something to do on a Saturday. Flipping between the old college football, UFC. Wow. Jam-packed day yesterday, but before we get into last night's fights, we got to talk about a guy who is a legend in the game, who's not in the UFC, but still taking names and kicking ass, and that's Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson. Boys, he kind of won the flyweight one championship, but it's really at bantamweight. He's kind of come out, was on the MMA Hour. And it's just like, I don't really feel like I'm the best flyweight anymore because I don't fight in that division. I'm more of a 135er. He's like, maybe I'm the best 135er in the world. Craig, is Demetrious Johnson, is he the best flyweight still in the world? And, what would it look like if he made his way back into the UFC and fought at that 135?
Well, obviously, the dude's definitely got a case for being one of the best fighters. We always say, though, man, like the best fighters are in the UFC. We want to see beating UFC guys, but we've seen this guy in the UFC and we've seen him win in the UFC. And I mean, globally, one is probably the next step behind UFC, and he's over there dominating too. There's talks about him and Triple C fighting. I wouldn't mind watching that fight because honestly, I want to see somebody put it on Triple C, and I think Demetrious Johnson's a guy that can do that. But it's kind of one of them situations. I mean, it's what's next for him. He's kind of dominated everywhere he's went, and he's at a spot right now where, honestly, why not market yourself and try to put together some big, huge payday fights? But yeah, I mean, I think definitely he's got a case to argue he's the best 135er in the world, and why not? Make some fights, some big time fights happen to see it.
I mean, Kenny, Craig mentioned Triple C. We've seen Triple C and Mighty Mouse fight at flyweight. Would you want to see him fight at 135 at the bantamweight? And, what's your kind of take here on the legend that is Mighty Mouse?
I won't go as far as to say that he is the best flyweight in the world anymore, because I think you do have to go through FIG to say that anymore. But I'll watch him and Triple C fight any weight class. I don't care if they want to get fat and come out of heavyweight. I'll watch them two fight any day, man. That's going to be a good one. I don't know if you guys seen the video of Triple C watching Demetrius's fight against Moraes, the last one. He was pumped up when he won, man. I think they all kind of want that fight to be as big as it can be if he is ever going to come back and make that happen. I don't know, man, for Mighty Mouse to say I might be the best 135er in the world, I just don't know if you can really make that claim either. I think there's a lot of guys you got to run through to be able to say that anymore. They could probably start with Triple C. I think that's a good legend fight. That kind of lets everybody kind of know where they're both at as far as that UFC level talent before they make that title run, if they are going to make one. I'd love to see that fight. Mighty Mouse is an animal, though. I mean, the knee he took in that loss, that's not even legal in the UFC. And that's where you, like kind of Craig alluded to, if you're going to be the best, you got to be the best in the UFC. So that's not even a loss in the UFC. So I think that he can still make whatever claim he wants, but he's still got to come back and prove it if he's going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real though. I mean, he is a legend in this game. He is probably really some people, go to the small guys. I mean, definitely go to the flyweight division in general. I mean, that's the reason he's not really in the UFC is because he cleaned house and fought everybody in the flyweight. Now we have some new names coming up, obviously, because he's been away for a few years. I would like to see a return to the UFC. I mean, we talked to Triple C, a matchup of him and Peter Yan. him and Aljo in the wrestling. Like, just there would be so many great matchups at 135 for a guy who can still go at and a guy who's been around. If he was to return at 135, Craig, what's the best matchup, other than Triple C, that you would like to see at 135?
I mean, I feel like if he was to come over to UFC, he's one of those guys that can dang near just come in and get a title shot. So, I mean, obviously the guys at the top, like you said, Peter Yan, Aljo. And honestly, if TJ Dillashaw wins the fight, I think TJ and Mighty Mouse would be a great fight. And those are two names that have been around a little bit. But yeah, I think that would be a great fight.
I'd like to see him fight anybody but Aljo for his first fight. Just strictly, okay, and for the tail of the tape, I would love to see that. Because Aljo might be an entire 2 feet taller than Mighty Mouse. But I would hate for that to be his first matchup, just because I do want that train to get a little bit more steam before it gets derailed, if it's going to. And I'm not saying that Aljo would beat him or nothing, but boy, that's a heck of a size disadvantage right off the gate. But any of them small, man, Yan or TJ, I think would probably be the best matchup for Mighty Mouse. I like where Craig went with that TJ if he was to win. And I don't mind Mighty Mouse getting that immediate title shot. He left on top, which most people don't get to do, and he's coming back arguably on top. So I feel like if anybody's gonna get one, it can be him right away.
Yeah, you're talking about tail of tape. I just imagine him and Sugar Show, going at it. Like, Sugar is this, 6 foot, lanky, long, tall,
he's gonna
fighter.
Have to bring his tool out just to touch gloves.
Yes, yeah, and then Mighty Mouse is just this little small, rumble. In the tail of the tape would be hilarious. It'd almost be like that picture of him and Shaq standing together, except for it'd be like Yao Ming and Mighty Mouse together. That's what it would look like. Just because, so you talk about tail the tape, and that's just, you have this image of like Sugar Show, with all the tattoos and the crazy hair, I mean, Mighty Mouse has got tattoos, but just this kind of clean, nerdish looking guy. That would be an incredible scene there if Sugar Show and Mighty Mouse got into it. Hey, we'll move on here, boys. Fight broke down as it was scheduled, and we liked the fight. We kind of talked about it a few episodes ago of Sean Strickland and Jared Cannonier. Sean Strickland pulling out of the fight, has to have finger surgery. I believe that was a fight that's scheduled for a fight night in October, so we're about a month away. Kenny, who's somebody that, who could step in here and fight Cannonier and kind of fill in that main event void?
Yep. I'm being professional. I really, and I know that it may not be a popular choice, but heck of a time for old Darren Till to come back and quit talking shit and actually get a fight, right? I mean, that's kind of who I was looking at as far as he's a big name. Now, he's not exactly got the last, 4 or 5 fights that you like getting somebody in that top 5, but he's a guy that you can throw in there and nobody can really argue against it because he has shown that level before. So I really think Darren Till's sitting there, man, just wide open to step in and take that fight. It's a good fight for him if he can come back and beat Jared. Boy, he's right back in the mix.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about Darren Till, and he's kind of speaking on Darren Till, he's kind of come out and said, hey, I want like 2 fights by the end of the year, and next year is going to even be crazier. So I mean, if he's going to get 2 fights in the year, October's got to be that fight. Craig, I mean, are you kind of with Kenny here on Darren Till, or you got somebody else in mind to kind of step in?
Yeah, I mean, I think if Darren Till's ready to fight, that's the clear-cut choice. You look at this division, man, and a lot of these guys have got fights coming up, or they're just coming off of fights. You don't know how soon they're going to be getting back out there. So, I mean, I think, Darren Till's actually a perfect choice. We talked a little bit about Gastelum yesterday, too, and kind of where he's been at and what's going on with him. But it's kind of outside of these guys that have been missing time. Everybody else here in the top 10, top 12-ish have got fights or just coming off of fights. So there's not a lot of options out there to fill that void for Jared's fight.
Yeah, I mean, Jared Cannonier's number 2, and we'll get into Robert Whittaker here in a little bit. And Brunson's fighting. He's 4. He's got Hermanson, who's at 8. Paulo Costa just fought. Alex Piera's got the title shot. So I mean, you're looking all the way down at number 9. There's Darren Till, Kevin Gastelum, who's at 11. And, I think Andre Muniz, he just fought. We just saw yesterday, Nasruddin just fought. Maybe, another person you could throw in is Duplessis, who's all the way down at, we're looking at 13, you know what I mean? So that's a big jump for Duplessis, but that would be a heck of a fight because Cannonier loves to bang, and we saw Duplessis wanting to bang. To make Kenny's point too, to kind of piggyback what he's saying on Darren Till, that's a perfect comeback fight for Darren Till. Not a wrestler, a guy who can stand up and bang, a bigger guy. That's the only scary part for Cannonier, because he is just, this is a guy who fought at heavyweight, light heavyweight, and is just an absolutely big SOB. I kind of worry about Darren Till, who was a welterweight at one time and is now moving up a smaller. So he's kind of on the smaller end of the middleweights, for his comeback fight to try to get his career back on the tracks.
Yeah, I like that Darren Till fight, man. I don't know how he would feel about it. I don't know if anybody's really asked him or said anything about it, but I do think that it's set up. You guys said Gastelum. That's another good one. He's sitting there. At some point, he's going to have to come back too. We talked about that in group this weekend. He never did disclose what that injury was, so who knows how long he's going to be out with that. But Gastelum's another good one. And DP, man, he'll get in there and bang with Cannonier. He ain't going to be scared of that, so that'd be a good one too. Yeah, I like your point on that.
Yeah, I think that would just be a fun fight. So, as a fan, two guys that just love to stand and bang.
Rankings don't mean shit. You know what I mean? We've already seen that. Rankings don't mean nothing. Just pick a fight you like and let's make it happen.
Yeah. As next weekend's a prime, prime suspect of that situation. That rankings don't really mean anything. Dana will try to sell us on, poop being ice cream, and expect us to buy it.
The rankings don't mean much when the marketability is there with guys like Nate, guys like O'Malley. The thing is if Duplessis fights Cannonier, what if he wins? You just beat the number 2 guy. I don't know if he's got the marketability where Dana's going to give him that shot.
The way he
better start drinking beer out of shoes, boys.
Yeah, the way he fights, he is marketable because he is a stand-up and bang guy. And I'm those guys, any guy that can, shut your lights out is a marketable to the UFC.
Yeah, if you have a chance that if your wins are going to be highlights, you got a chance to be marketed. That's just kind of the way that's going to go.
They kind of need that in that division. Really, we need another guy up there because we're going to talk about Robert Whittaker here in a little bit, but some of these guys up near the top, they've fought the whole run of guys. We kind of need a new name up there.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind the Kevin Gastelum fight. I always felt like he was like the top 10, gatekeeper for a long time because it felt like everybody was fighting him. He's a guy that will take fights on short notice. Just an absolutely dog. I was like, it was weird, like how we were sitting there yesterday just watching the fight. I was like, man, whatever happened to Kevin Gastelum? And we had to look it up because, he hasn't fought at all this year, hasn't fought in over a year. Since August of 2021. So it's just like, man, over a year he hasn't fought. And this is a guy who you're used to seeing fight 2 to 3 times, a year. And he just hasn't, it's just whatever the injury, but the loss, he's had some losses, but it always seems like his losses, you're just like, hey man, that guy was the absolute dog. He's fighting Robert Whittaker and he's fighting this guy. And you're just like, yeah, he's supposed to kind of lose those fights, but he's also been in some tough fights. And you're just like, maybe he's just, still young, but just still, he's just fought who's who in that division.
Yeah, all of his losses mean something. He looked pretty good against Whit. That's a decision fight that Gastelum never was out of. Whit outclassed him the whole way, but he was never out of. Like you said, even his losses, he looks good. He's definitely that top 10 gatekeeper type, and there's a lot of guys that are kind of missing having to go through him on the way up because he's been hurt, that maybe we don't really know who they are exactly yet because they haven't had to go through him.
Yeah, Alex Pereira is that guy that he's missed everybody, and he got the highlight knockout that they needed from him, from Sean Strickland. And then they just keep, they're going to keep showing that knockout of him and Izzy. Let's just say if he was 1-1 against Izzy and they hadn't, not 0-2, he may not be fighting for that title. It may not be as high ranking, but now they got the 2 knockouts from when he was a kickboxer, and they're like, well, hey, is he one more guy here, and we'll see, and we'll kind of get more into the to the
You got
middleweights
to
here.
skip the line because Izzy's beat everybody else. You know what I mean? So they
also true.
They needed that.
Also true. So Kenny kind of mentioned rankings don't mean shit in a fight yesterday. That rankings did mean something. We'll get into it right now, boys. Last night's main event. I thought it was an absolutely incredible, fun fight. I thought Ciryl Gane to me looked, I said his best as far as like he just didn't stay away and outpoint Tai Tuivasa. I would have thought like, hey, he's just going to outpoint him. He's going to stay away. He got in there and banged with Tai Tuivasa. Tai knocked him out in the second round. And to me, if Tai bum rushes and comes in just quickly, just hits him with the more like about a 3-piece uppercut while he's down. We're talking about Tai Tuivasa pulling off a huge upset, who was plus 400 going into that fight. But credit to Ciryl, battles back, gets up, hurts Tai. I mean, that there was a point in the third. I thought Tai played the rope-a-dope, played possum with him, faked like he was hurt, and then loaded up. I mean, that was incredible. It was a fun fight. I stood up, I was like, oh, he played possum. I was all excited. I really thought Tai was going to pull the upset there in the second, but nevertheless, Ciryl Gane, credit to him. Battle back. Kenny, what was your thoughts on yesterday's main event?
It's been a while since I've watched a fight that made me literally fist pump cheering for a guy. Man, when he hit Gane and Gane flew back into the gate, I was up. Let's go, Tai. Let's go, Tai. It's been a long time. I feel like it's been since Francis and Stipe since I had that sort of just investment in a guy, man. How can you not love Tai Tuivasa? To sit in when he took some liver shots, boys, that other dudes are tapping out from. Other dudes, the fight's over, and he just hunch over, finds some sort of muster in there to throw 1 or 2 more haymakers and maybe catch Gane. You got to love the heart he showed, but boy, Gane looked good. I mean, he looked good start to finish. He kept his range, and he wasn't scared to get in there and bang with him. He showed with Lewis and Tai now, bro, he ain't scared. He wasn't really scared against Francis. He just kind of got out wrestled, which was weird, but he ain't scared to get in there and bang with nobody. He doesn't care that he's supposed to be the technical striker. He'll swing and bang too.
Craig, I mean, Kenny kind of mentioned it. Tai's big old gut was just like a big red marker. It's like when you're beating the bad guy in the video game and you just got to hit that one spot about 100 times. I mean, Tai's big old gut was just that marker. And I mean, Gane was just kicking him over and over in that gut, and just too many body shots there to the gut that it did tie in. I mean, what was your kind of thoughts on yesterday's main event?
Yeah, man, like you guys both said, dude, that was a incredible fight for, not even going a full 3 rounds, man. It had a lot of excitement in it. I mean, hats off to Tuivasa, man. And hats off to Ciryl Gane, because like I said yesterday, a lot of people don't survive that from Tuivasa. That hits enough. He doesn't have to bull rush him super quick. Because usually they're not getting their legs back under them as quickly as what Ciryl Gane did yesterday. But I feel like at that point in the second round, I think Ciryl Gane kind of realized like we can't make this a 5-round, take it to the points fight. This thing ain't going 5 rounds, and he started working the body, which really, I mean, that was kind of the downfall, because there in the third round, Tuivasa, you could tell his body was hurting. He was keeping his hands down. He was trying to protect the stomach. And then he was just taking the shots to the face, man. And like you said, credit to Ciryl Gane, man. He wasn't just kind of dipping and diving and working the points. He got in there, especially in the second and third round, and realized like, I'm gonna have to get in here and bang with this guy. But there was a couple times where there was one time there in the second, he was rushing him, gave him like 3 straight leg kicks to the body. And Tuivasa just kind of caught him with a left hook and gained that respect back. And he would knock Ciryl Gane back a little bit, so he couldn't just continuously like be aggressive. I think Tuivasa fought a great fight, especially considering who his opponent was. So, I mean, hats off to both them guys. But Ciryl Gane, man, we said it last week when we were kind of predicting this fight. That dude he moves so smooth and elegant for as big as he is, and he's good, man. But yeah, man, that fight was great.
So he's such a technical fighter, but I mean, he showed that he can brawl with maybe the best brawler. I thought Tai Tuivasa, Craig, like you said, he looked like he belonged in that top echelon, almost like, hey, you guys, I'm for real. Like, I know y'all see me knocking out folks, but I can stay and I can fight with these guys. He's going to have to get his cardio, under control a little bit better. I mean, he worked on that, I think, because both fighters looked exhausted in that second round. That second round was just an absolute fun round for me. And I think it helped that it showed the sportsmanship between those two guys, that they were having fun because they were both out there laughing. It was almost like a fun sparring session that meant something because they were both laughing, having fun at the same time. Great sportsmanship, I thought, both by Kenny.
Yeah, no, they were like that all week too. You seen all the pictures of them together. They were smiling, they were laughing. This wasn't a fight that they were trying to sell some fake ass bad blood. They just said, "Hey, he's a good fighter. I'm a good fighter. We're gonna go figure out who the best guy is tonight." And you got to love that. And I think when you think about Ty and kind of you said he needs to get his cardio up, I think part of that was in that second round going into it. You heard his corner saying, "Hey, second round's your round. This is where you do it." And he almost got that finish. I think he probably gave every bit of whatever he had left because he knew the gut's already hurting a little bit. He keeps giving me them toes to the belly button. It ain't feeling good. And I think he just kind of spent what he had left. In that third, you can kind of tell it's like, listen, and even his corner said, all you need is one shot. You're not going to win this fight with points. All you need is one shot. And he was trying to get it, and he just wasn't able to. But he definitely showed that he belongs there. I mean, anybody that watches that fight and thinks that he didn't belong in that fight did not watch the same Ty we did.
Yeah, I thought that, Ty, even though he lost, he didn't lose any stock, right? Like, to me, like, it's not like, man, Ty doesn't belong in the top 5. He doesn't belong in the top 3. To me, he proved the exact opposite, is that he does belong. That he is, I've compared him to Derek Lewis. I would say he's better at Derek Lewis was at this point in his career than Derek Lewis was. So I felt like both fighters, their stock rose. Tremendous fight. So kind of, Craig, what's next here for Ciryl Gane? And, what do you got? What's next for Ty?
Sorry, I couldn't get my mic unmuted there for a second. This heavyweight division, man, I mean, there's just so many question marks. I mean, Ciryl Gane's ranked number 1 in the division and just beat number 3, so who is left? I mean, Curtis Blaydes is up there. Curtis Blaydes is probably going to have to fight one of these guys, and really, Curtis Blaydes to me makes sense for either one of these guys, for Tuivasa or for Ciryl Gane. It's tough until we know what's going on with Stipe, and we know what's going on with John Jones, and we know what's going on with Francis, who says that he's not fighting this year. It's tough to match make up here in the heavyweight division. Like you said, in my opinion, Tuivasa didn't lose stock. So I don't think Tuivasa needs to really fall down the chain too heavily. Tom Aspinall is hurt right now. I mean, maybe Pavlovich gets Ty and Blaydes gets Ciryl Gane. I mean, maybe you do something kind of like that. But like I said, and until we kind of know what's going on with Jones, Stipe, and Francis there at the top, it's tough to match make with Ciryl Gane, who's the number 1 guy. I mean, I guess the way things stand right now, Curtis Blaydes makes the most sense.
Kenny, I see you kind of somewhat shaking your head over there.
I agree and disagree with a few things. That the only fight I think that makes sense is Curtis Blaydes, in my opinion. I think you can kind of read the tea leaves. Francis says he's going to fight early next year at some point. It's been rumored that Stipe and Jones are going to fight the end of this year. Those timelines seem to match up where Francis is going to fight the winner of Stipe and Jones. And so I think that you go ahead and throw the Ciryl Gane fight with Curtis Blaydes at the end, kind of see where Ty's at. If Tom Aspinall is not going to be back until next summer, which is most likely, Ty's going to have a fight in there. And I think Pavlovich does make the most sense because he did just knock out Derek Lewis. It's like, hey, here's the next brawler. If you can beat him, then you can make a case. And so I think that both those fights really make the most sense. And then I think the heavyweight division will kind of work itself out through that little Grand Prix type tournament that'll happen.
The problem is, I mean, we're talking about Francis. Francis's contract's over at the end of December. I mean, as soon as that calendar year hits 2023, Francis is a free agent. No deal done. He's come out and said, "Hey, I'm not fighting this year, so they can forget about it because I'm out of shape. Like I'm still recovering from the ACL surgery."
The deal's gonna get done though. The deal's gonna get done.
I don't know. I mean, Francis over there talking more about Tyson Fury than he is talking about John Jones or Stipe.
And it might get done after Tyson Fury, but it's going to get done.
So then you're looking even at midsummer. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And here's the thing, when Volk sits back and says, "Hey, let everybody else fight, and I'll fight any interim champion there is," Francis can really do the same thing. He can go make 30 mil fighting Tyson Fury, let Jones and Stipe fight, let Gane and Blades fight, let those two winners fight, and then fight that winner. He can sit back all the way till next September and make 30 million in the meantime and be just fine.
Well, I mean, at that point in time, it wouldn't be an interim fight. I mean, yes, it would. In our minds, it would be an interim.
If his contract's up and he doesn't sign, then it would be vacated. You're absolutely right. It wouldn't be interim, but he would still come back and say, "Bitch, the belt's mine." So it's still belt on belt when he gets back.
I mean, he beats Tyson Fury. The UFC would offer more money, and then they could go out and market him even better. You know what I mean? Even more, which I don't understand why Dana's not trying to work that deal into his deal and cross promote this guy to let him go fight Tyson Fury, let him go make his money. I think Dana's biggest fear is he doesn't want another Conor McGregor, a guy that's bigger than the sport, right? Like Dana always wants to moniker things off the WWE and what Vince McMahon did. Vince McMahon hated when guys like The Rock and Stone Cold, they became bigger than the sport, right? Like he doesn't want guys to leave for Hollywood in those type of situations and have different ventures. That's what Dana White's trying to do. You know, Francis Ngannou should be one of the most marketable people in the UFC with his knockout power, his size, his story, and they don't really market him very well. So I just think he doesn't want Francis to go out there and fight Tyson Fury because he doesn't want another Conor McGregor on his hands as far as somebody that's bigger than the brand.
So that's what I was going to ask when you brought up that. Do you think it's better? What do you think Dana's sitting there thinking? Do you think Dana wants Francis to win a fight against Tyson Fury or lose a fight against Tyson Fury? Which one is better and which one's worse for Dana?
I think if he
wins, you're gonna have to pay him $1 billion a year.
He's probably better off if he loses.
And if he loses, then you can no longer say that you got the baddest dude on the planet whenever he comes back. So you lose that bit of marketability. So I just wonder,
if Francis beats Tyson Fury and makes 8 times the money in the boxing ring, why would he ever come back? You know, just defend the boxing belt.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Dana's gonna have to pay him. I mean, he's gonna make more money than Floyd Mayweather. I feel like he has to. I don't know how Dana can ever bring him back. It's gonna be wild.
I think that was half the problem with Conor McGregor is I mean, he was great for the UFC while the UFC kind of had Conor under their thumb. But once he kind of ventured out and was making his own money, and he didn't have to take all these UFC fights and make Dana White all this money to make his own money, that's when Dana White gets the problem. You know what I mean?
It's like Bodkin said with Dana and Vince, they want you to need them. The second you don't need them, then they no longer have control. And you can see that they really, and I don't want to bring out the mob boss. I know I say that about Dana a lot, but you can see the way he works a lot of this stuff. He makes sure that he's a businessman. He makes sure he's always got the upper hand.
He doesn't want you to be bigger than the brand. The brand is the UFC brand is more important than anything. That's the way the way the fighter scale set up, everything. You got to still have me. I mean, just like it's the government, man. Like, I mean, when it comes to
fighters are starting to recognize that too. You've seen a lot of fighters, the Jorge's, Connor's retired a bunch. Francis won't sign a new deal. A lot of these guys are pushing back, and then you see O'Malley. Listen to him in a presser. He loves Dana White. He'll go on his F It Friday show. He'll cook whatever he needs to, Cheeto, mashed potatoes, whatever the heck. He's all about the brand and you see him skyrocketing. Now he's fighting Piotr Jan.
Yeah. And the UFC's behind Sean O'Malley because he's behind the UFC. Mm-hmm. Greg, I mean,
then there's guys like Nate that are peeing on the UFC brand signs and they get fed to the wolves,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Craig, we kind of talked to your take here. I mean, with John Jones, we talked about him for a minute here. Is Stipe? I mean, that fight's not. We're kind of 3 months out, I guess, to December. Stipe, is he even going to come back? I mean, Stipe just seems like he's happy being a full-time firefighter, and it's just like, maybe I don't want to. Could Ciryl Gane, I mean, if Francis is out and Stipe's out, Ciryl Gane is the guy for John Jones. Craig, would you like Ciryl versus John Jones? That would be the absolute toughest, I think one of the toughest fights for John Jones to welcome to himself in heavyweight.
Yes, I would love to see John Jones and Ciryl Gane, and I think that's a fight that we're going to see. I don't think that that's the fight that John Jones wants as its heavyweight opener. But But yeah, man, I don't know what's going on with Stipe. Like I've read some places that say Stipe Jones in December, dang near a done deal. And then I've read other places that say Stipe hasn't even been contacted or hasn't contacted them back. He doesn't really have any interest or doesn't seem like he really cares that much to fight John Jones. So who knows what's going on there. But one thing we do know is John Jones is about ready, and John Jones is going to have to come in here and fight somebody. And John Jones and Cyril Gane, I mean, that's got to be the two most skilled heavyweights on the planet going at it immediately. I feel like that's a fight we want to see. I feel like it's a fight that the UFC wants to make happen, but I feel like they want to give John Jones something else first. And honestly, like John Jones and Stipe is the perfect fight for John Jones to come into, because it's obviously probably going to be the last fight for Stipe either way. It's a big money fight, big marketability fight. But yeah, man, John Jones, Cyril Gane, I mean, who wouldn't want to see that? That'd be the two most skilled heavyweights on the planet going at it, man. That'd be great.
Yeah, I agree with you. And Kenny, the first time I ever saw Cyril Gane fight, I thought, man, that's a big John Jones is what Cyril Gane is. Just that his technicality, maybe not obviously as good as a wrestler as John Jones is, nowhere near probably. But I mean, Cyril Gane, could he end up facing here in December? I mean, he's kind of next in line as far as, John Jones in December.
You got to think he's looking at that, just hoping to God that Stipe does something to pull out of that fight, right, and end up not wanting it. Because then it is Cyril Gane. And he's, I mean, legitimately sitting in a situation where if Francis is going to have to vacate or whatever that situation comes into, John Jones is fighting in either an interim belt fight or a vacant belt fight. And so no matter what, if you're Cyril Gane, you have to want a John Jones fight, because it means that there's a belt on the line for you that maybe last time you fought Francis, you thought you might not get back to, or you didn't know how long it would take. Heck, it might just take, freaking few months. So I think everybody should want Gane and Jones. I think the UFC, as well as all the fans, should also want Stipe and Jones. It's the only time that they're ever going to be able to market that as a GOAT fight, because like Craig said, it's probably the last fight. I think that I hate to say that UFC owes people stuff, but Stipe's done a lot, and I feel like it'd be good business to give Stipe a big money fight like that on his way out, to where he can, that's probably a generational wealth fight just in itself, off the way you're able to market that and the way you're able to promote that. And so I definitely want to see Stipe and Jones more, but if Stipe is going to pull out, then let's do Jones and Gane, and let's get that thing over with. That's a fight we all want to see.
Yeah, I think the casual fan and the most marketable is Jones and Stipe, or Jones and Francis, which obviously we know Francis isn't coming. We just kind of talked that out. But I think for the diehards, like the most technical, and I even think probably the hardest fight for Jones would be Gane. And would be a fun fight, and you slap the interim title on it. Or you can, might be the real title. Who knows? If they can't get that, it just depends on when that December card is. And I know maybe they're definitely trying to work on a contract with Francis here, but I mean, that might be for the real title, Craig. I mean, are you buying into, kind of Gane and Jones there?
Yeah, I think if December rolls around and Gane and Jones are fighting, and there's no deal done with Francis, and that's all up in the air, that's going to be for the interim belt, because, if the year passes, a deal doesn't get done and Francis has to vacate that title, I mean, there's John Jones. That's who they want to hold that belt. So I feel like whatever fight he's got there in December, there's a good chance that that's already for the interim belt.
Yeah, I agree. I'm kind of with you. I think no matter what, that December card, if John Jones is on it, it's for either the interim or the real title or something. Speaking of titles, the former title holder of the middleweight, Robert Whittaker, just gave an absolute class of pieced up Vettori 3 rounds. I think the first round he was just kind of making reads, and after that he's like, oh, okay, this guy's going to be easy read. And then just after that, just pieced up Vettori. Gave Vettori some shots. It was unanimous decision. Kenny, what was your kind of thoughts there on the co-main, and what's kind of next for Rob Whittaker, who's kind of in this no man's land here, as far as he's kind of, you got to beat Rob Whittaker to get to Izzy, and nobody can beat nobody can beat Whit here.
Nah, man, and we've been saying it for a long time. He's the best 185er in the world. It's not named Israel Adesanya, and I think he showed that again last night, or I guess yesterday afternoon. He had kind of said leading up to this week, when Marvin started all the BS, Rob said, he just doesn't understand how good I really am. And Rob went out there and showed exactly how good he really is. And, as much as Rob is a rangy decision fighter, he was hitting him some monster shots. And I think most guys, besides probably Vittori and Brunson, probably get rocked pretty well by most of those shots. And I think that Rob still showed that he's absolutely the class of the gatekeepers. I think he's the best non-belt holder probably in the UFC. I do not want to see him move up to 205, but I don't know what else you do except him and Sean Strickland maybe, and Strickland gets back. I don't really know what else you do for Witt because he's just beat everybody that's not Izzy.
Craig, I mean, Robert Whittaker, probably one of all three of our favorite fighters, one of the nicest guys in the sport. I mean, just absolutely beat up the guy that we all hate in Vittori because, Vittori's just, like Kenny said, just didn't realize. Vittori is so full of himself. I mean, as you know, I always relate to things as wrestling just because that's, UFC and WWE is very similar. And he wants to be a heel, but he's not even a good heel. He's just an idiot heel. He's like that guy that you're just like, I don't even want to get behind him. It's like the most worst heels of all time is Vittori here because you're just like, you don't even say stuff that's smart that makes me even think, but you're believable.
No, I think that's the biggest thing. You can't even believe that he's a heel. I mean, he says this shit and you're like, oh, so someone told you that was a good line to say when you got on stage. Like, I don't know if he even understands half the time. Like, he's just not a good heel, man. Like, and I don't think he could ever turn babyface again either. I think he's kind of past that. I think he had a chance with Costa. He kind of came in and cleaned up the dude that we all really, really didn't like. And then he turned right back around and went to old Vittori. And I just think, man, I'm just always going to want him to lose. Credit to the guy. I mean, he's a good fighter, but I'm always going to want him to lose.
To the worst guy that you could be an a-hole to in the sport, Craig, right? Like, I mean, we talk about how respectful Bobby Knuckles is and all, just how he handles business. Like, Vittori says, you know what? I'm going to be an a-hole to the nicest guy in the world.
Yeah, I mean, Whittaker, and like we said yesterday when we were watching the fight, dude's only, 30, 31? He's been in like 30 professional fights here. Dude is a class act. And, but Marvin Vittori is who he is. We talked about it yesterday when we were watching the fights. Like some of these UFC heels will say things that we know ain't true, that they act like it's true, but they somehow kind of like are convincible. But Marvin Vittori just ain't convincible. He's just up there saying things, and it's like nobody's buying this crap that you're saying, Marvin. And like I said yesterday, I mean, he's made a living on bully wrestling and dudes in the division, and that's only going to take you so high. And I mean, I love seeing Robert Whittaker, piece him up the entire 3 rounds yesterday. Like you said, I mean, I'm a huge Whittaker fan. We're all huge Whittaker guys here. And Robert Whittaker, I mean, if there's not a dude named Israel Adesanya fighting in the UFC, Robert Whittaker's in the GOAT talks because he's defended that belt against the top 8 dudes in the division, and he's been holding that strap forever at this point. And like Kenny said, what's next for Robert Whittaker? I mean, what is next for Robert Whittaker, man?
This is what Rob needs to go home and do. Dear God, on November, can you please have Alex Pierre beat my Australian accent's not very good, but
is that what he wants though?
Hey, mate, can you have Alex Pierre just knock out Izzy and send Izzy's teeth flying into the crowd so I can fight Alex Pierre and get my middleweight title back? That's what.
Because Israel Adesanya is at the status right now that he gets to run it back if
they're going to run that back.
If Whittaker gets that fight, as if Adesanya doesn't want it, So that's
yeah.
Is that good for Robert Whittaker? Yeah, man. Robert Whittaker wants somebody else to hold that strap, but at the same time, whoever takes it from Adesanya gets it back. So Robert Whittaker still ain't fighting for that belt.
Here's a guy. I'm going to throw this fight out for you guys. What about a guy moving up to 185 here? Colby Covington versus Robert Whittaker. I mean, how good would that fight be? 2 guys who are kind of similar situations, right? I mean, I guess now that Colby could fight Leon eventually if Leon wins this rematch against Usman. But I mean, if Usman got that belt back, Colby lost to Usman twice, and they're almost similar. How would you guys feel? Colby moves up to 185 here and takes on Robert Whittaker. That would be an interesting fight.
I think that if Colby is going to move up to 185, that's probably the best fight for him. And I don't say that as far as I think that Colby's going to beat Rob, but I think that their size matchup wise, it's going to be the best size matchup for him. Everybody else is a little taller, a little bigger, which even Rob's talked about that move up to 205. He's been very open about saying, hey, I know when I move up, I'm short and I don't have that same advantage that I do down here. And Colby's going to kind of be in that same realm of when you're a 6 foot tall, 6'1" welterweight, you're a pretty big dude. Alex Pereira is what, 6'6"? Is he 6'4"?
Yeah.
You ain't big no more. You move up to 185, 6'1", 6'2". You're just a normal dude walking up in there. And so I think that him and Rob would be a good fight. It would tell us a lot about where Colby's at as far as at that 185 level. They're both really the same. Good stand-up dudes, good wrestlers. I think Colby's wrestling's probably a little better, but boy, Rob can wrestle. Man, I love that fight. If he is going to move up, that's the one I like to see. And it's a fresh face for him, for Rob. You know, he's not going to have to fight somebody he's already fought before. He's not going to just be sitting there watching the Izzy fight. That's another, and that's a fight that if Colby does move up and beats Rob, then you can say Colby can fight Izzy right away. If Rob turns around and beats Colby, you can even say, hey, give Rob another shot. I mean, that's 2 fights in a row that he's won at that point. Again, if Rob's fighting him, you have to consider that dude a number 1 contender. And so if that's no matter what, that's 2 number 1 contender fights that he's going to have won at that point. So I think that Rob's got to want that fight too.
Yeah, I would like to see Rob and Covington, but I mean, I feel like you said, if Robert Whittaker wins that fight, at some point Robert Whittaker gets another shot at Adesanya, right? I mean, Max Holloway got 3 shots at Volkanovski because the second fight was close. I mean, the second Whittaker and Adesanya fight was close. So at some point, I feel like if Whittaker keeps on winning, he's got to get that shot. If Adesanya beats Alex Pereira and holds the belt, I mean, who deserves to fight Adesanya in that division more than Robert Whittaker a third time? You know what I mean?
I don't know if just beating Vettori though gives Witt. He'd probably have to win at least one more.
Last time he had to win 3, so he's probably got to at least win 2. But as far as Adesanya is concerned, I mean, if he beats Alex Pereira, who in the division deserves a shot at him is what I'm saying. I mean, he's cleaned house up there too, you know. But as far as Covington and Whittaker fighting, man, that would be an amazing fight. I think both their styles, the way that they fight would be great. And I mean, I would love to see it. As a big Robert Whittaker guy, I would love to see, you know, somebody kind of put it to Colby Covington a little bit. And Robert Whittaker, man, he's just, to me, man, that press conference, it would just make me hate Colby Covington more because Robert Whittaker is such a humble guy, and Colby Covington's like Vettori, man. He's going to talk smack the entire time, and he's going to make you, I mean, he wants you to hate him. He's a heel. That's his character. You know what I mean? But the guys that do it to guys like Robert Whittaker, they just make you dislike him a little bit more, I feel like. But yeah, in the octagon, man, that fight would be great, I think.
So that's kind of, you know, that was some possibilities for Rob. What's next for Mr. Vettori? He's kind of, me and Craig were kind of going through his list yesterday. He hasn't fought anybody in this, like anybody really in the top 10. His biggest win was Jack Hermanson. He took on Kevin Holland on short notice. Kenny, like who should match up here with Vettori match up with?
Man, it's hard to say because probably the best matchup there is a fight that I don't think the guys want to take. And I think it's probably him and Strickland. You know, I know that they're boys and I know they don't really want to fight each other, but I mean, Vettori, he lost a decision fight to Rob Whittaker. And I think that means that he didn't take that big of a step back. I don't feel like, I mean, Rob goes out there, not classes you. Rob goes out there, not classes 99% of the people he fights. So I don't think you take a very big step back. Strickland got knocked out. Okay. You got caught. So I think that you could pretty much argue they can both deserve that top 5 gatekeeper type fight to figure out who sticks around. But they're boys, so I doubt it's going to happen. I already used Darren Till's name once, but I'm going to keep throwing it out there until he fights somebody because I think as long as he's in the mix, if you're a top 7, 8 guy, then I think that his name belongs in that conversation too. Really, man, we've kind of talked about it. It just kind of depends on who can fight. You know, I mean, you guys brought up Gaslam's name a lot. Gaslam, Till, one of you guys that ain't fought in a long time is going to have to get in there and fight one of these guys because everybody else has already got to fight. And so I think as far as what's next for Vettori, he has to go down. And so I think it's got to be like one of these guys, a Strickland type or a Till type or a Gaslam type that's hurt right now, and it's just going to be a little bit.
Yeah, he was supposed to fight Darren Till, I believe, in 2020 or last year. I think it was 2020, and that's when he fought Kevin Holland on short notice.
That's what kind of started the downward spiral of Darren Till for the last year was kind of pulling out of that fight. It all kind of went downhill for him after that.
Yeah, he had that one fight against Brunson where he just looked awful. Craig, kind of what's your theory here on what's next for Vettori? I mean, he's going to have to get it together. He's got to fight some real, like, I don't want to say real fights, but just some high-ranking guys. He was able to somehow skip the line. I don't understand how he was able to skip the line to get that title shot against Izzy. I guess he just talked his way into it, even though he was the only person to believe it. Maybe him and Dana were about the only two people that believe in what he was saying.
Yeah, I feel like part of him skipping the line was just like we said before. It's just a case of Izzy beat everybody. You got to get somebody up there to fight him. Got to try to get a new face in there. But yeah, like you said, Marvin Vettori hasn't really beat anybody. And I know it's a little ways down, but Nasruddin just fought on the same card and won, and he's ranked at 12, so he might move up a little bit. Vettori moving down. I mean, you could throw them together. Just, I mean, you know, to try to get a ranked guy on Vettori's record there, get him back up in the mix. Like Kenny said, Darren Till, keep throwing his name out there until he fights somebody. Darren Till's talking like he's ready to fight somebody. So there's a few names out there that could happen. And I mean, you know, they talk about that Wembley card early in the year. Vettori Till would be big on that card. Don't know when Vettori's going to be ready after this, because I mean, he took a little bit of a beating there yesterday. But I mean, those are a few names. And like Kenny said, Sean Strickland too. Sean Strickland and Marvin Vettori would be a good fight. But at the same time, if you're going to try to find something up there for Robert Whittaker, I mean, he's beat everybody all the way down to Sean Strickland. So if he's got to fight somebody else up there, you know, in the top 5, top 10, that's about the only guy left for him. But if you don't make that happen, Strickland and Vettori would be a good fight too.
Yeah, I think if you did Vettori Till, like you said, at Wembley, that would, I mean, absolutely crush. They've already been back and forth in social media. You mentioned Nasruddin. Nasruddin fought an unranked fighter in Joaquin Buckley yesterday. So, like, you know, he did the UFC favor, fight down. Usually, if you fight down and you pass that, they kind of try to get you to fight up next time. So, I mean, maybe it is Vettori and Nasruddin. That wouldn't be a bad option. I could see that happening, Craig. So before we get out of here, staying in this middleweight division, Izzy's manager kind of come out and he said, "Hey, 205's we're not done at 205. You know, that's still a huge possibility. Even at heavyweight, Kenny, could you ever see Izzy at heavyweight or even making that run back up at light heavy? I mean, we know he's got something. It's like he wants to either be John Jones or is just going to chase John Jones. That was a fight that, you know, up until he lost to Jan Blachowicz that everybody was kind of talking about. And since that loss at 205, you know, the Izzy versus Jones talk has kind of really died down.
Well, the Izzy versus Jones talk was really the pound for pound GOAT talk at the time. And that's kind of where they were trying to direct that fight towards. And so whenever he moves up and loses to Jan Blachowicz, it's kind of hard to keep marketing that the same way because he's already shown, okay, well, he's not even the class of the 205. But I definitely think he's going to move back up at some point. And I don't know when that is. I think I would love to see it because then it opens the door for Usman to move up to 185 as well instead of him trying to talk about moving to 205. I think, but Izzy's got to do it right. Whenever you hear Whittaker talking about it, he said, you know, he took a long time to transition from 170 to 185. He made sure that his body was right. He put on weight healthily. Izzy went out there and fought Jan. He was, what, 200 pounds?
Yeah, took the pizza on the scale. Took the pizza on the scale.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's not going to be able to fight dudes that are walking around 225 on fight day the same way, and I think he's kind of seen that. So I do think he's going to move up to 205, but he's going to have to do it in kind of that Rob Whittaker way, almost like John Jones has done moving up to heavyweight. Now, whatever contract disputes there were that's kept Jones out of the octagon, he's been transforming himself. You've seen it on Instagram for the last year and a half, 2 years of him becoming what heavyweight John Jones is going to look like. And I think Izzy's going to have to do that same sort of thing to really be successful at 205. He's got the build. If he puts on to where he can't just get ragdolled by guys like Jan, he's going to, I don't want to say run through like it's going to be easy, but he's got a chance to take over that 205 division the same way he did 185 because he's just so skilled.
Yeah, Craig, what's your thoughts here? Is he lightweight and heavyweight maybe at some point in time?
Hey, Izzy got no business at heavyweight. I didn't say that. I want to cut Craig off. But Izzy got no business at heavyweight. Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah. So I'm right there with Kenny, and I was going to kind of say the same thing. I could see Izzy making the move up to lightweight at some point in time. But like we saw against Jan, Izzy just thought Izzy could be Izzy and go up there and fight guys at that weight division, and that didn't work out that well. Just like Kenny said, man, we've seen the way that guys that actually move up transition, the way that John Jones has been transitioning his body for almost 2 years now for the move up to heavyweight. I don't think Adesanya can make that move all the way up to heavyweight because I do think it's going to be a process of him getting his body right to make a move up to lightweight to really be competitive. The big thing for Adesanya is he's just – those big boys will wrestle him and they'll keep him on the mat. He can go up there. He can maybe go to heavyweight right now and be the best striker in the division, maybe not named Cyril Gane, but guess what? Them boys are a whole lot bigger than you and they're going to ragdoll you all over the place. You're not going to win fights up there unless if you can really transform. So I think right now really why we've seen Adesanya so dominant is because he's perfect where he's at, man. He's got the long range. He's a great striker for the dudes that he's fighting. And if he is going to make a move up to 205, he's got to, become 205. He's got to become a 205. You can't be a 185 or a 190 pound guy going up there fighting them 205ers all the time and expect to be real successful.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you guys. He would have to take a lot of time and put a lot of weight on, a lot of muscle if he was going to really take a real good run at 205. It's hard to become double champ and things like that because especially when you get up into those upper echelon levels, we saw DC do it just because, but DC was a heavyweight cutting down to light and should have always been fighting at heavyweight. The only reason he wasn't fighting at heavyweight was because Cain Velasquez was his teammate and he wasn't going to fight Kane or anything like that. So he was cutting down and barely cutting down to 205 as we all know. Where Izzy, I'm probably walks around at 200 pounds and has to cut down to 185. So I don't think he would have to put on a lot of muscle. He would almost have to take 6 months to almost a year off, and I don't think that double champ status is him. But if he vacated the middleweight title and said, "Hey, I'm out. I'm going to go beef up and get this light heavyweight title," I could see that. He would be you put him right in the title fight. Hey, you're a champ, just like they're doing with John Jones, as we've talked about at heavyweight. They would give him the title fight at light heavyweight, and that would be, imagine him and Yuri going at it. What a fight that would be. If Yuri's still the champ at 205 there, that would be an incredible fight. Yuri and Izzy, just two, absolute mixed martial artists, just, fighting and counter-striking. It would be insane because Yuri would put the pressure on Izzy, and Izzy, it would be interesting to see what would happen there.
That's a better fight for Izzy than the Jan fight. Jan wrestle you, big power guy, try to take you down and control you. Yuri's going to want to stand and bang, so Izzy's got a chance to catch him. I think that if Izzy beats Alex, I think it's hard for him not to move up to 205 because then he can really say, you guys went all the way around the world to find the one dude that chopped this tree down and he couldn't do it twice. And I think there's just nobody left for him, and it's going to be easier for him to take that 6 months to a year off coming off a win like that than it is coming off a loss because he's going to want to go out there and kind of and get that spin cycle going for his public opinion. You know what I mean? So I think if he beats Alex, it's easier to take a year off and say, hey, almost like Volk's doing about wanting to fight 155, like y'all figure your shit out. He can kind of justify saying the same thing, and nobody will be able to say in the media, oh, is he lost to Alex, now he's running. Nobody will be able to say that as long as he beats Alex,
Yeah, and we'll find that out in November. Before we kind of wrap up here, boys, you guys got any Kenny, got any last comments or thoughts?
No, I don't think so, man. Just kind of ready for next weekend, kind of see if Nate's going to give Dana the double birds on the way out.
Craig, you got anything?
No, just kind of on top of what Kenny was just finishing off with there. You said, you don't see Adesanya being champ. He has to beat Alex Pereira to be champ. And if he can win that fight, like Kenny said, there's nothing else left. There's nobody left for you to fight in that division. So you can take a year off, you can beef up, and you can really try to chase that 205 belt and become champ. But if he loses this fight to Alex Pereira, then I don't think there's ever a way that it's going to happen again.
Yeah, agreed. So boys, folks, this kind of wraps up the Head Kicks and Haymakers. We'll be back. The three of us will be back tonight at 8 o'clock Central. We'll be breaking down the NFL, giving our divisional picks. Each division, I don't know how we're going to talk. I'll try to cram it into an hour and a half. I mean, it'll probably be a 2-hour show. So buckle in, folks. It's a good thing it's Sunday, and Monday is an off day holiday because we're going to be burning the midnight oil. We'll start at 8 o'clock Central Time Zone. So join us back here on the Bodkins channel. Kenny and Craig will be joining. We're going to be breaking down all the divisions, plus a little K&K Fantasy Corner. They're going to be giving out some of your sleepers and bust kind of guys that they're higher than and lower than. So tune in for that. We're going to be giving out some fantasy news. We're going to be giving out our football divisional picks. Plus, we'll be coming to you live every Wednesday night, starting this Wednesday. We'll be picking every game against the spread, and we'll be talking about all the football news. But don't worry, fight fans. Head Kicks and Haymakers will still be rolling on. We'll have our UFC's 279. I believe we're going to try to do it maybe Friday night. Got some family obligations Saturday morning, so we might be coming to you live. We'll put that out, kind of discuss that. But we'll still have a preview show for UFC 279 to be either hopefully maybe Friday night, or we'll figure the time zone. We'll put that out later. Then we'll be back here, UFC 279 post show, hopefully with the Nate Diaz shocking the world. We'll discuss that next week. Make sure you're heading over to the Let's Talk Sports, and the Sports Buffoons. Comment, like, subscribe, share, be a friend, tell a friend. Also, before I get out of here, one more time, we got one last comment from Chris Landez here. In honor of Head Kicks and Haymakers, let's honor the dog of the week, Serena, taking it to the round 3 of the U.S. Open. Absolutely. I thought she was going to take that last set and push herself there, but tip of the cap to the GOAT of women's sports and the GOAT of women's tennis for sure, in my mind. Absolutely dog and stud, the GOAT that is Serena Williams. So tip of the cap. Anyway, catch you back here tonight, 8 o'clock Central. The boys will be joining me. Our NFL preview. It's going to be a blast. Like, subscribe, share, be a friend, tell a friend, folks. Make sure you give us a 5-star rating on the old Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Hit the subscribe button, share with your friends, tell them how great or crappy we are, and they still got to check it out whether you like us or dislike us. Kenny, go ahead and hit that outro, baby.